Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
Okay, we are going to discuss two teams that had their struggles last year, hoping to bounce back in 2021. Ryan, what's our question for today?
Question is Penn State or Michigan more likely to bounce back this year?
Okay, let's start with Michigan. And, you know, even though their defense wasn't good last year either, the biggest question mark with them the last few years has been that offense. And the quarterback battle this year is down to Cade McNamara, and of course, who's kind of the incumbent returning starter. Then you've got Bowman, the transfer from Texas Tech, who was solid there. And then you've got a true freshman 5-star, JJ McCarthy. I would predict McNamara, but we'll see in fall camp. Whoever it is, though, they've got a good group of running backs to work with, led by Hassan Haskins. Offensive line struggled with injuries last year and just kind of struggled overall. But the top 6 players in terms of snaps from last season are back, so at the very least it'll be better. I don't think it'll be like great, but it'll be better.
All right.
At receiver, you've got a good duo, Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson. So that's, you need some guys behind them to step up for sure. But so yeah, overall, I mean, it's not without question marks, but I think the offense could be a little bit better than people think, because the floor for quarterback play is Bowman, and like I said, he's solid.
Yeah, he is. I liked Bowman at Texas Tech. He's a gunslinger, and but the offense, it wasn't horrendous last year, but it was just very inconsistent. Some stretches or even games, the passing game would show flashes or moments, but then it would get stuck in the mud, and then same thing with the running game. I think you mentioned Hassan Haskins. They also got Blake Corum, highly touted Donovan Edwards in the stable too. So there's some depth there. And if you've listened to our podcast, Michael, like when you look at it, the receiver room to me is the most important position, just because they haven't had much success the last couple of years. And what I was alluding to was, if you've listened to us, Michael he still thinks Tariq Black is going to have a big year. One of these years.
Tariq Black, he's going to break out. He's by way of Texas, and I don't even know where he is now, if he's just gone. But he's going to break out.
One of these years, he's going to break out for Michigan. But they just need a little more consistency on offense.
And this year, apparently, they need a little more consistency on defense. That was usually the hallmark of Harbaugh and former defensive coordinator Don Brown. Last year was just what we're hoping is just an anomaly for Maize and Blue fans. But Don Brown's gone. He's at Arizona, bringing in 33-year-old Mike Macdonald. He was kind of had stops at Georgia and the Baltimore Ravens. Sounds like he's going to go with a little bit more of a kind of a multiple look. So I think you'll see a mix of 4-3 and 3-4, kind of depending on situation and team they're going up against. He does have a lot of production coming back. Aiden Hutchinson leads the way at defensive end. That was a big get for him to decide to come back for another year. Could have gone pro for sure. They do lose Carlo Kemp and Kwity Paye up front, which hurts that D-line. And that D-line, even with those guys, kind of struggled. So there's definitely some concerns up front. It's probably the worst D-line that they've had since Harbaugh got there. Linebackers also a concern. Josh Ross and Michael Barrett are back, but are a little undersized. It's kind of an undersized group overall, so that's a concern. The corners, green and gray, nice color duo. They got to step up. They weren't very good last year. Heck, even Rocky Lombardi kind of got the best of those guys last year. So, I mean, it sounds a little doom and gloomy, but there's talent. Those guys could step up, and maybe under a new system they can get a little get their groove back a little bit. But they need guys like Hutchinson to have a huge year, and possibly Dax Hill at safety position. If he can kind of live up to his potential, I would go a long way. So it's going to be better, but I just don't think they're going to be a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge to get back to that top-level defense that we were used to seeing Michigan, especially given that scheme change. They, like you mentioned, Ryan, they really need some havoc plays out of the D-line. Maybe Aiden Hutchinson will provide that for them, because they only had, I think 9 sacks in 6 games. I don't know if you even mentioned that. That just can't happen again. And the other thing is they only had 2 interceptions in the 6 games they played. That's pretty astounding. They obviously need more production from the back end. I do like Dax Hill. I think he'll break out this year, but they're going to need other guys to really step up and create some more turnovers for this defense to be successful.
Okay, and let's get to their schedule, see if it presents an opportunity. And I don't know. I mean, in the non-conference, they have 2 games where they'll be big favorites against Western Michigan and Northern Illinois, facing Rocky Lombardi again. Didn't he transfer to Northern Illinois?
I think he did go to Northern
transfer,
Illinois, didn't
So, anyway, maybe it's kryptonite. But Western Michigan, I think they're like a 17-point favorite, but Western Michigan's good, so that's not a gimme.
Yeah, watch out.
But like I said, those are still 2 likely wins, and then 1 toss-up game at home against Washington. That'll go a long way towards determining whether it's a successful season or not. So there's a chance there to start 3-0. We'll see. In conference, of course, they always have Ohio State and Penn State, which is rough, at Penn State this year. And they also drew at Wisconsin from the West. So I don't know. This schedule it's the 12th
Remember
toughest.
that game? Was it last year where they just got destroyed by them? Or was it the year before?
That was a couple years ago.
That was a couple years ago?
No,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, you're right. Wasn't it? I think it
but
probably
last year
was.
they came back. Last year they played. I think they got killed by Wisconsin last year too, didn't they?
Oh, did they? Yeah. I just
How
remember
soon
that
we
one game. It was
forget,
like
but
28-0, just like right away.
I remember what you were talking about. I
Yeah.
think that game was a couple years ago, but I want to say they played Wisconsin after Wisconsin was off of a COVID layoff, and I think Wisconsin put it to them. We could check that as we're talking
Yes.
here. But anyway, 12th toughest schedule in the country according to Phil Steele, which is kind of par for the course for Michigan. Seems like they always have a tough schedule. So yeah, it's getting 8 or 9 wins will be an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at Michigan, now we kind of transition over to
You're
Penn
right.
State.
They got smoked 49-11.
Yeah, okay.
I don't remember that one. I guess that one was, but yeah. So that's that 2 years in a row there they got smoked by Wisconsin.
Well, I don't. Now we got to check 2 years ago.
Well, no, but you know
Let's
what?
just call it
The
one.
2 years ago,
It was.
2 years ago, was it what 35-7?
50. No, it was
35-14.
35. Oh,
I knew
But
it
it was like
started out
28-0
worse
or something like
yeah,
right away.
I
Yeah.
knew it was
Yeah, that's right.
better
That's
than
right.
it really was. All right.
Yeah.
So we've addressed Michigan. Now we look at Penn State, and I'll kind of lead off with when we break down a little bit of their offense. So James Franklin fired Kirk Soraka, brought in former Texas offensive coordinator Mike Yurcich. What's weird is the Nittany Lion, they've had a lot of turnover, but the Nittany Lion offense last year, it actually finished second in total offense in the Big Ten, but it really didn't really feel like that when you watched it. So it's a bit misleading. So obviously this season all kind of comes down to Sean Clifford and how he looks, especially since it's very thin behind him, so he can't really afford to go down. They had way too many turnovers last year. Obviously they need to shore that up. They were, in Clifford's defense, most of those turnovers, the pass protection was very spotty at best, and he showed he can be better. In 2019, he had a pretty solid statistical year, so they need the 2019 Clifford to come back. Jahan Dotson, he's electric, playmaker on the outside. Parker Washington, it's a good receiver duo that they have. They've got a nice stable of running backs too. I don't really see any issues at running back overall. It's really just going to come down, can they adapt to the new scheme, and will the offensive line do a better job?
I agree. Yeah, you laid it out very well right there. I think the O-line should be solid. 3 starters back, including left tackle Rasheed Walker, who's got a ton of potential. Plus, they add a transfer from Harvard at guard, Eric Wilson, who was 76th in 24/7 Sports Transfer Portal 150 rankings. So he should help. Overall, I think it comes down to which Sean Clifford we see. Yeah. But I also like the hire of Mike Yurcich.
I'm with you guys there. All right, let's move on to their defense. Defense struggled out of the gate in 2020. It finished strong, which was a good sign, although the opponents, I think, certainly helped with that. They played some pretty poor offenses the last 4 games. Secondary is great. Tariq Castro-Fields is a stud at corner, as is Jaquan Brisker, excuse me. He's a good safety for them. So, and I like Joey Porter Jr. also. I think he's got a lot of potential. So, talent, depth, secondary is really, really good. It actually might force them to play more kind of 5 DBs just because of, you got to put your best 11 on the field. So, and then if you look at the front 7, there's question marks. Shaka Toney, Jason Owe are gone. after going on to the NFL. So just one starter returns up front on that D-line, and it looks like they're going to have to start a couple of transfers, one from Duke, one from Temple. Those players were solid to pretty good at their previous schools. There's no doubt. They're going to come in and help, but I'm not sure if they can come in and compete at a level that Penn State's defense is used to along that defensive front. I think the linebacker group should probably be the most improved on this defense. I think they get everybody back. They need to take a step forward. Obviously, Micah Parsons sitting out last year was a tough call. It was a tough one for them. But overall, I think Brandon Smith is kind of the guy that might be able to take that next step, really kind of anchor that linebacking unit. He was a former 5-star, so if he kind of ups his game a little bit, that linebacker group could be all right. Get back to linebacker U. So defense will get better, but I'm not seeing the elite level that they've been at times.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it could be pretty good because of you brought up the secondary. Castro Fields, their top corner, was hurt most of last year, so that's like getting a kind of a new player there, which is
true,
which is huge. And I think I'm more bullish on that defensive line than you. Like, I think it has the potential to be very good. I think those transfers, they're, according to Pro Football Focus, they were both like the best defender and second best at their previous stops. So I think James Franklin was aggressive in the transfer portal, and I think it's gonna pay off on that defensive line. So should help negate. I know those were big losses, so maybe they won't.
Yeah,
they're not going to match.
I don't know if they can match.
I know. I don't think they're going to match the production of the guys they lost. But there's other guys on the roster at defensive end that are primed for breakouts. So Penn State tends to do a pretty good job there. So I'm bullish on the defense. But how about the schedule, Trey?
Well, it's kind of tough because
This seems bad.
well, no, the reason I really say that too is because week 1, they have one of the toughest first games in the country, and it's tough because they play at Wisconsin, and it's tough because it's a conference game, like right off the bat, and that's really going to set the tone on their season because playing in that Big Ten East, obviously you don't want to lose many conference games at all, but losing week 1, knowing you're still going to have to play teams like Ohio State, you're really behind the 8 ball. And then there's a bonus whiteout game against Auburn early in the season, which they should be favored to win, but it's no gimme. It'll be fun from a fan perspective to watch. And then it's also tough because they drew the top 2 teams in the West, Wisconsin and Iowa, and both of those games are on the road. So they're going to be favored a decent amount in the back half of their schedule, but that first part of the schedule, it sets up pretty difficult. So they're going to have to try and get their wins.
Yeah, 5 road games, 4 home games in conference is never ideal. Okay, let's answer the question that we posed at the beginning of the episode. Is Penn State or Michigan more likely to bounce back? And I think Penn State is more likely. They finished 18th in SP Plus last year, so they just really weren't as bad as their record would indicate, whereas Michigan, I'm not quite as confident in making that claim. They really were, not so great last year. They also had, of course, Penn State some key injuries, opt-outs before the season, bring up Micah Parsons. And in week 1, they outplayed Indiana. They just didn't win the game. And then, of course, they fought hard against Ohio State the next week, and it kind of seems like they gave up for a couple weeks after that.
Yep.
It was kind of a tough couple losses to take, especially in COVID, after a COVID off season. So they finished up the season nicely, and I think they're going to bounce back this year. Tons of talent. I still believe in James Franklin as a coach. One down year with some couple unlucky losses is not going to deter me. So and I like what Franklin did in the transfer portal. He made some sacrifices. He took a lot more transfers than necessarily when you would like to be able to just take high school recruits, but it was necessary. So I like it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think it's Penn State. I think they were the better team actually last year. And then I just think they're, honestly, if you compare Michigan and Penn State, both offense and defense, I think Penn State's just a little bit better on both sides of the ball. And one of the other reasons I really trust is I trust the ground game from Penn State a lot more than I trust Michigan's ground game. I like guys like Kayvon Lee, Noah Kane, and even Sean Clifford has some wheels. He can run a little bit. So I'm not saying Penn State's going to come back to winning like 10 games, although it's in the cards. But I do think they're I have to give them the edge over Michigan at this point.
Yeah, I think Michigan will improve. A lot of people just kind of writing them off, but I'm also going to lean Penn State on this, because the reason I do that is because at this point there's too many questions for me surrounding Michigan. Who's going to be quarterback? Can the offense play like it did a few years ago? Are they going to generate a pass rush and adapt to the new defensive scheme? It's just there's a lot of questions, and I like the way Penn State finished the year 4-0. I know that was a little bit of a weaker slate, but they can build on that. I like their weapons that they have. Like you, Ryan, I'm not saying they're going to be a shoo-in to dramatically improve, but I just have less questions on them as we sit here today.
Okay, that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. Let us know in the comments on YouTube your thoughts on these two teams, anything we missed, especially if you're a fan of Michigan or Penn State. And we're going to be back tomorrow. Big Ten week continues, and we're going to list our breakout players in the conference. So we'll see you then.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.